Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media and bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Or you haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that now. Also post about it, rate and review. You will not believe how that gets this podcast into so many more leaders' hands just like you. Today, we continue our series on effectiveness. This is part 2, episode 6.3, the effective leader's strengths. Kevin, you look serious and ready to dive in. Man,
ready.
Now you're back to joy. There we go.
There you
go. You're seriously joyful.
I'm honestly I'm pumped about this series, and
me too.
I thought last week was a great kickoff to it.
I agree.
And I just think this conversation is incredibly important. And so this is one where I would go, this maybe isn't the most unique material that we've done within here. It's probably not the goofiest material that we've done.
Yep.
But I really think that this is probably the most important series that we've done. And so last week, I'm just going to recap the broad overview of the idea. And that's to say, as a leader, your responsibility is to be effective. Effectiveness is about results. It's about output, not input. It's about results delivered, not time worked. And that is if you're making a case for why you're doing a good job based upon the number of hours you worked in a week, you are completely missing it as to what it means to be effective. And so we're kind of touching on these 4 areas of effectiveness. And last week we talked briefly about seeing opportunities and not just identifying problems. And the hard thing is it's not like these different areas that we're going to talk about. Today we're actually going to talk about strengths. We originally were going to talk about time, but we felt that was out of order. But they all come together. Okay, so when it comes to opportunities, strengths, time, and decision-making, it's not like you master one and then move on to the next. They all need to work in concert with each other to build results in what actually is effectiveness. So today I want to talk about strengths. And I want to talk specifically in the idea that if you're going to make an impact, if you're going to make a contribution, it is going to be through your strengths. Your weaknesses won't get anything done, okay? So spending your time shoring up your weaknesses will not deliver the results that you're seeking to deliver. The only way you're going to contribute results, it's through your strengths. And so the idea of, hey, opportunities, we want to exploit opportunities. We want to find the opportunities that are there and not focus on eliminating problems, but we want to use those opportunities for everything that they're worth. And by knowing your strengths, which we're going to get to in just a second, by knowing your strengths, you are able to know, hey, where should I leverage myself in this area of opportunity? So here's my quick side note. And I want to say this doesn't fit in the order of the content, but it's so important. I just wanted to throw it at the very front. Okay. And that is, people with great strengths have great weaknesses. If you have incredible strengths, you will have massive weaknesses too. And so when you're seeking to get results, let's talk about it from a boss manager perspective. If you're seeking to get results, you are not looking for well-rounded people, because you understand well-rounded people probably don't have an area of massive strength. Talk athletics for just a second. The most well-rounded players are average players on their team. The great players have areas of incredible strengths. And so you go, all the stuff on, like, I'm an NBA fan. I apologize if you're not. Like Shaq, top 5 centers of all time. Horrific free throw shooter.
Really bad.
Getting paid like crazy.
Yeah.
Horrific free throw shooter. You've got other players, phenomenal scorers. terrible defenders. You've got other players, great finishers, awful passers, like just nothing good there. And so we talk about like, hey, the greatness of these individual people. It's not because they don't have weaknesses.
Right.
It's because they were continuously put in a spot. Now, I'm not saying they should never touch on their weaknesses. Understand that. Like, you go, oh, they're so good at delivering results here, but they'll never pick up their phone. They can learn to pick up their phone a little bit. But it's never, their punctuality or availability is never going to be their strength. And so often, I wish we could spend forever on this.
Yeah.
Okay. I just need to acknowledge that. So often the way in which we review employees, review people who work for us, who are on our team, we do it in such a way that is meant to shore up their weaknesses instead of leveraging their strengths. And that's just stupid.
Yeah.
Like it just really is. Don't bring someone in and tell them what they're bad at. Tell them what they're good at, what they need to be doing more of, because they're exceptionally qualified in this area. Now, if it's hurting you, maybe have one thing to go, hey, if this got a little better, it would make a big difference. But to get strengths, you have to put up with weaknesses. Strong people always have weaknesses too. So, a couple different categories. Okay, first I want to talk about knowing your strengths, and I'm just going to touch on that for 1 second. And then I want to focus on 3 key areas that you need to think through this strengths-based application. And I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we're talking about effectiveness, okay? To get results, you have to operate in the area of your strengths. So how do you know your strengths? There's 1,000 different ways. The most common way that people use today is take a test. Take the Strengths Finder test. Patrick Lencioni just came out this great test on working genius, and this idea that, hey, in the process of a project, you're going to have 2 areas of genius, 2 areas of competency, and 2 areas of, I don't know how he defines it, frustration. I don't think he called it stupidity. He's not that harsh to call it. You're gonna have 2 areas of genius and 2 areas of stupidity.
Yeah.
But there's 1,000 different. Take the leading from your strengths test. Like there's so many different ways. If you don't want to take a test, let me give you 2 other options. Ask a friend. Ask a friend, and man, it better be a good friend, because the question you need to ask them is to say, hey, what am I really good at? And they should be able to answer. If you don't want to ask your friend and that's too uncomfortable, look at the past. Like just look at your past and say, hey, what am I working on when I'm really enjoying it? And what are the things that I naturally do that get results? So sometimes we can fall into this tendency to think that, hey, if I'm really working, it's got to be frustrating and I've got to spend a lot of time on it. And that's probably not your area of strength. Your strength is an area in which you get unnatural results and the time flies while you're doing the work because it comes so easy to you. So an area of strength for me is organizing content. And so I talk about like, hey, the message process, there's 3 different pieces of the process. There is discovery of information, there is organization of the content, and then there is delivery of the message. My weakness of the 3 is delivery. Like identifying content is easy for me. And then organizing content is incredibly easy. And so I'll have people send me their messages and go, hey, I don't know, I can't get flow. I can identify the flow within 5 minutes. Like that is a piece of cake for me. And so that's an area of strength. When I'm doing it, I get unnatural results and it's really easy. You need to know what your strengths are. And then this will probably be the most insightful part of this podcast. That's a high lofty note. This might be the most insightful part coming up here. And some of you are going, oh, that's going to be great. I've been taking notes. And others of you are going to go, well, I hope so.
Yeah.
Because this has been crap. Yeah. Like I'm ready for something.
Give me something.
So 3 key areas: acknowledging you're a leader, you're focused on results, and you, in order to get results are going to come through strengths. So 3 areas that you need to focus. First one is leveraging the strengths of your team. Leveraging the strengths of your team. Peter Drucker, in his book, The Effective Executive, says in every area of effectiveness within an organization, one feeds the opportunities and starves the problems. We talked about that last week. And then he says this: nowhere is this more important than in respect to people. Like, which people have unique opportunities and which people create massive amounts of problems. As a manager, if you have multiple people reporting to you, here is my guess. You spend more time with the problems than with the opportunities. Well, he says here, he goes, no. If you're going to leverage the strengths of your team, you need to ensure that you're focused on people in their area of strengths and not those who are simply creating problems. Otherwise, you're not going to get results. Good things are not going to happen. And so it's to understand. There's another book by Marcus Buckingham that he talks about the one thing you need to know. That's the title of the book, is The One Thing You Need to Know. And it talks about managers, that great managers, the difference is they see their people as chess, not checkers. In checkers, every piece has the same ability. In chess, each piece has a unique ability, a unique strength. He says, great managers see all of their people as individual and unique, not just in terms of their temperament, but in terms of their ability. So you need to leverage the strengths of your team. Second thing, you need to leverage your strengths. And I believe those go in that order. It is my responsibility to leverage the strengths of my team. And then it is my responsibility to leverage my strengths. I'm not going to talk at length about that because we've already touched a lot on this, and it'll get even more into next week how you properly deploy your time. But you need to ensure that you are operating in the area of your strength. And then here's the third category. And this is the part that no one looks at because you think, oh, we covered it. You need to leverage the strengths of your boss. Effective executives make the strengths of their boss effective. They make the strengths of their boss productive. When I was a youth pastor, okay, back in the day, I knew that the pastor that I served under, he was a great people person. He was not an organizer. And so there was a season in which I found myself complaining about his lack of organization at times. He was a great people person, and he was also good at projects. It was the initiation phase that things got bogged down, but he was good at projects. And so I just had to train myself to continuously ask, hey, can I do this for you? And then I didn't stop there, because if I would have just said, hey, can I do this for you? It would have come across as, because you suck at this. And no boss is going to take that feedback well. Yeah. I would say, can I do this for you so you can do this? I had an awareness of where he was strong. And in that sense, I was saying, hey, I was leading him from the second chair saying, this is where your strength should be going. So in order for your strengths to be going this direction, let me take this off your plate. I didn't say, can I do this for you so you can kick back and relax, or can I do this for you so you can do whatever you want to do? I wanted to clarify to him, I knew what he was good at. And great leaders make those who are not just under them in the org chart, they make those who are over them in the org chart, the people who they report to, they make their strengths productive because they have an awareness of their strengths. And so to understand this, you're responsible for results. Effectiveness is about results. Results come through contribution. Results come through what we contribute through our strengths. So you must leverage strengths, and acknowledge weaknesses will come with it in order to get those results.
Wow. Lots.
Again, this is so much.
This is lots, man. Incredible insight. As you said,
it's not mine. It's Peter Drucker.
I know, but it was nevertheless incredible. I've got tons of notes, and we're not going to get to all these, obviously.
Yeah.
I will say this. We mentioned this last episode, and we're touching on it again here, is great leaders help people see their opportunities. They also help people see their strengths.
Yes.
And I think that's such an important concept, because it's easy to not do that. It's easy to just say, let's get this done for the result, without pointing the strengths of which they will actually produce way more in the future by pointing out the strengths in the moment. And it's such a simple concept that we just forget.
Yeah.
Just forget. Or I don't know. It seems like forgetting, like, this is what I need to do.
You haven't asked me a question. This is the time that you get to ask me a question. But could I say something?
Yes.
I think one of the things, and this is where people don't understand how our church and our team functions, and it seems chaotic to them.
Mm-hmm.
because we have organized around strengths.
Yes.
And we haven't organized around department. We've organized around strengths. And so we have people who do 2 or 3 wildly different jobs.
Yep.
But they're all in the areas of their strengths.
Right.
And so I'm never going to, well, because you're over this, you have to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going, who has the ability to do this? And sometimes it's confusing to people, and they're like, people will ask this. This is the question they always get, like, what's your role?
Yeah.
Because that's how we've defined jobs. We've defined, here's your job.
Yep.
Here's the skill sets needed. Here's the scope of responsibility. We've just gone, we've got a lot of strengths. Let's make the moves we need to make and deploy people where we need to.
And that's such a great note. And I've got these questions I want to ask, but I want to keep on this because I think this is the most important part is great leaders make people better. And if they're doing that, they're figuring out what can I do? I don't look at a job description all the time. That's just a base function. Yeah. This is a base function. I have to get this stuff. But my real opportunity, my real strength is making others better. I love what you said about the people who I report to. Talk more about that specifically, because I think that is a key. If I'm working underneath somebody, it's really important for me to help them be great at what they're already great at. And it's important for me to take from them what I might be better than them at off their plate.
Well, so here's I have 3 people that report to me.
Yeah.
You, JC, and Sheila.
Yeah.
And all 3 of you do an amazing job of this. Which is partially why you 3 report to me.
Yeah.
Is because you guys are constantly going, hey, I'll do that. You do this. And I don't know if you're aware that you're constantly doing that, but you are always using that statement with me.
I think you hit it right there. I don't know that I'm doing that because it's just, I think I've learned that over time. That's the best way to get results. That's the best way to get results is by letting you do what you're great at and taking what you don't want to do or aren't good at doing off your plate. What do we need to do to get to that mindset as we continue to be leaders?
Oh my goodness. I think this is the hardest thing. Okay. Cause it's not just a do this.
Yeah.
It's a perspective.
Right.
It's an understanding of saying like, all right, so here's my fault and failure as a leader. I think everyone's great somewhere.
Right.
Like I think everyone is absolutely fantastic somewhere. And the problem is sometimes they're not living up to their potential, and I see so much of their potential that I don't see present reality. But the benefit of that is I'm not staring at people's weaknesses.
Right.
Like some people are like, oh, they're not good at this. Who cares they're not good at that? They're great at this.
Right.
Now, if that's character deficiencies that are caustic to the team and concerning to the future, that needs to change. Like to say, I'm a liar. That's my weakness. Okay, that's not okay. We're talking about like skill sets and productivity. And so it is training yourself. So I had a conversation with Sheila the other day. We're rewriting a bunch of stuff. It's just kind of that time of year where we start to reorganize and align everything.
Evaluate.
Yeah, and one of the things we're going to rewrite, we're rewriting Forward, our assimilation onboarding thing, and it's going to be incredible, and I'm so pumped. But then as a part of that, attached to Forward is this 21-day devotional that we have. And so you can text live to 77222 if you want to see what we're talking about. But we're going to rewrite that. And Sheila goes, do you want me to take that on? Now, first off, I want to acknowledge the proactivity of her not letting that fall in my lap, but going, do you want me to take that on? Because she knows that's not where I'm going to love for my time to be spent. But my response to her, so she's trying to alleviate my time to make my strengths productive, is I said, Sheila, you're more than capable of doing that, and I trust that in your hands. But I want your time spent with people, not writing a devotional.
Right.
So she's aware of my strengths, and I'm aware enough of her strengths for us to have a really honest conversation and go, neither of us are best suited to do this.
Yeah.
So it needs to fall to someone else who is ideally suited.
And I think that's the point of what I'm trying to say is you guys got to a point where you wanted to have the conversation to see who was best fit in the moment to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that question is how do we get to that point? I think it's a perspective, like you said. One other question I wanted to ask real quick before we get out of time here, which these podcasts, we could go for days on these ones because they're so good. I'm checking out this Peter Drucker guy, man. This guy's must be a pretty smart fella.
He's the best.
Yeah. Peter, if you're watching, thanks, man.
He's dead.
He's not watching. That's funny. Not really. But you said small piece of knowing strengths. It says take a test, ask a friend, look at the past.
Yeah.
What does someone need to make sure that they do and do not do when they're doing that? When they're taking the test and they're asking a friend, because automatically
I want you to run into it.
We get defensive, and what are the things that we need to do and what we don't.
I want to hear your thought. I know you've got a thought on this.
You
oh, come on.
I get to ask the questions here.
The reality is that when you see your strengths, you don't make excuses about weaknesses.
Yeah.
And you're not, what's the right word here? You're accepting of your strengths and not the strengths that you wish you had.
Yeah, that's good. That's real good.
And so it's just funny because I go, I'm strategic. I'm a producer. I'm a learner. Like that is who I am at the core. It's easy for me. When I took the Strengths Finder test, they have them categorized by different areas. In my top 5 strengths, none of them fall on the side of people. None of them fall on the side of relationship building. And it's easy for me to look at people who have the relationship building one and be like, oh, I wish I was that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anyone who looks at me and goes, oh, I wish I was that I had no people skills within there. But to say, hey, you're accepting of your strengths and understanding you are uniquely wired for something.
Yeah, that's good.
And not envious of someone else's.
That's awesome. Well, that wraps up episode 63. The effective leader's strengths. What do you want someone to leave with today?
Let me take 30 seconds to close this out, and then I'm going to let you give a final word in this idea. When it comes to leveraging your strengths, I believe that in organizations, on teams, the distance between the strengths of the leader and the strengths of the team is a constant. Does that make sense? The gap between the effectiveness of a leader and the effectiveness of the team will always be the same. So, as you become more effective, automatically your team will become more effective. If you focus on leveraging your strengths and focusing on results, you will naturally change the perspective and behaviors of your team, and they will rise with you. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're living in your strengths and you're helping leverage the strengths of others.
That's awesome, man. I'm loving this series. Thank you guys for joining us. Episode 63, The Effective Leader's Strengths. We're so glad that you joined the podcast today. If you haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world if you did that now. Also, post and rate about it or review or all of it. You won't believe how that helps get this in the podcast, this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders like you. We love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you'll visit leadinghope.online with your stories and send those to us, we'd love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.